I'm going to the main activity as for. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. Why don't we? So we want to do, I mean, the first person. Chair. And I just. How would they?
Yeah. Okay.
You know, you need to go here, darling.
Is that good there?
I
You want me to push it back?
Yeah, if you want to get a little closer to that, like, yeah.
But when you cross,
I'm not gonna cross anymore.
yeah, you will.
I'm on this side.
So wait, if somebody comes up and speaks,
Oh, you know what? Why don't we raise it up a little bit?
because if like, hi, I'm speaking.
Like that?
Does that work? Or is it gonna?
It's not gonna get the people sitting down.
Nobody gets them right there. So,
Right there is good?
but why? Oh, but you have to do it. Tell not to show anybody that doesn't have a camera on. Like you see how you see,
Mm-hmm.
you can make it so it only shows people who have cameras.
Well, this goes away the minute we start presenting.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I won't see this. I stopped sharing it.
Okay.
The owl. I can, let me write down.
Oh, yes, yes. Go ahead.
And yeah, there's something that I guess somebody that is like 90 or whatever, I told you're making it. What's your name?
There's the GL.
Okay.
Alex.
Because remember I told you that I'm going to that party on
I'll send you an email.
Okay, here.
I'll come up that way. And then Johnny is in Nabilla. Yeah, they had done some work for your sister. And George told me, said, who's your friend there? I said, she knows who Johnny is. Because he was with them. So, but I didn't know your,
But he did come home from my sister who was right around the corner. I'm good.
yeah. And so, but I didn't know your maiden.
So this time, you should have gone to the contract.
Yes. Oh, the.
Yeah. I met her there. She's always invited me to the party. Yeah.
Year just be, yeah, 1984.
And you're still resident?
So.
Yeah, she's all right.
So I'm just gonna run through.
So, yes.
Yeah, let's go on.
Thank you.
It's the.
We're just going around the corner.
You're on the process. Yeah. Okay. That's right. I guess. Cool. At what point is she going? Okay, so she is, she's gonna be, like, after we do the intro, so you'll go through the PDF, and then do my part, and then. And so Marcella's gonna let her know her part's coming up.
There's so much traffic coming down.
Oh, I believe that.
Down.
We'll see. There's a lot of people sign up online.
Yeah.
So just to-
Yeah.
just doing that.
I will put it in.
I'll let you know.
So should I
No, they're gonna do that slide, like the meeting agenda and like the. But you're not the first.
We have 5 minutes.
No, no. Okay, here.
Well. No, you have me in the meeting. Put your shirt on. Don't kneel down, won't get up. I just got it.
At the very end? Or you can.
No, we're just gonna look at so you can have a reference for it. So you have paper copies of this.
I'm gonna try and
We've already passed those out, man. We already passed them out. I know.
No, it's not.
None of them. Except for those. What do you want to tell me about outside?
She's on. Just to get my children. At the last.
We're very. Yeah, exactly. Very, very. All right, we'll take it up.
What
happened? Somebody, okay. Have y'all taken the survey?
I just did it.
Okay, okay.
And it's on this.
We're gonna go through the survey if you want to wait.
Oh, really?
In
Okay,
case there's any
great.
questions.
Oh, man, I don't get
questions about the questions.
Did you already do yours? I did. I think I understood most, so there's no guarantee. Of course, gotta take lots of pictures, okay? Ready? Gotta take one picture. We got this. Over here, everybody, over here. 1, 2, 3, yeah, baby. Here we go.
No, I'm from Capital.
Thank you.
Do you want to fill out the comment card that's in your contact info?
I'm already on this. Yeah.
And we can just attach the comment card to this document. Scott.
Yeah. Wendy.
No, actually, yeah.
Oh, I think it was good. Oh, nice. Too much sugar.
Dedicated. I didn't. Sorry.
We're gonna go ahead and get started. So thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Joaquin Rodriguez. I am a project manager with the Capital Improvements Department. We are here tonight, myself, our Assistant Director of Capital Improvements Planning, Alex Hoffman, and Marcela and Apollonia are our urban design managers. We also have a few folks from Capital Improvements who are joining us online. So here's all of our direct contact information and our titles and stuff if you're interested in that. Again, we're recording all of these meetings and they'll be posted online. Our goal is really to have the same engagement process for folks who can attend in person as well as folks who are attending virtually online. So this little guy in the middle of the room is our meeting owl. It's a 360-degree microphone and camera that is capturing the whole room so that folks who are attending virtually can get the same experience. So again, thank you for joining us. We just want to set sort of some ground rules for tonight so we can try to stay structured and be respectful of everyone's time. We will have a Q&A session after a short presentation and survey. So that'll be your opportunity to give us your feedback on the survey and on our process and on some of the content that we're presenting to you tonight. If you want to comment or have any questions, please come forward to the owl. You don't have to be right on top of it, but just close enough so that everyone online can see and hear you clearly. If you have comments or questions that aren't really related to our capital planning process, we want to make sure that we can get you the best answer possible. So please fill out a comment card or get with us after the meeting so we can direct you to the right department or the right set of folks who can better answer your question if it's not one of us. So the purpose of our presentation tonight, we're hoping to give you an idea of what the capital planning process is, get some feedback from you on the process that we've developed, get your feedback specifically on project areas and values that you hold dearly, as well as looking at specifically the different areas of projects that we need your feedback on to help develop our project list. So here's a quick agenda. I won't go all the way through it. We've introduced ourselves. We do, I believe, have a district representative online who will address you shortly after this. Alex Hoffman will go through the capital planning process, and then we'll jump right into the survey after that. We'll give you a rundown of our live results that are all posted, and then open it up to questions and answers.
So this QR code here, you want to use your phone to use it, or we have papers around the room to open it up, or you can do a paper survey as well. I think I saw that we have our District 5 representative who is going to speak a little bit about what she views as priorities for District 5. This is a meeting for the East Side, so it's inclusive of District 5 and District 6. So she just wanted to have an opportunity to talk about what she saw as the vision for her district. So now I'll turn it over to Isabel.
Thank you so much, Alex. And good afternoon. Buenas tardes. I am Isabel Salcido, the city representative for District 5. I just want to start off by thanking the staff and having this public meeting and really truly getting the input of the community. I know I shared a great amount in our strategic plan of what are the needs of the district. Just to start off, and I'm going to step away, it's traffic management and addressing our streets has been one of the biggest priorities. And overall district, that's one of my biggest focus, but more importantly, we need to figure out how to create more jobs in our district. About 50,000 people, and you all are here from District 5, you all drive District 5 every day. So we need to figure out how to create more jobs in our district. That's just a secondary to that. But Alex, I do want to share some projects that I think are very important that I've been hearing my community talk about. When we talk about streets and traffic management, figuring out a way how we fund this connection of Monwood. I'm very happy to hear that every party is willing to talk and come to the table and have conversations, but I know internally it's how do we find this funding. So if we could get addressed some of the funding in this process, that would be great. One of the second things that I keep hearing in my district is we need a traffic light in Pebble Hills and John Hayes, right where Pebble Hills High School is at. And now catty corner to that is going to be our regional command center. So when that comes around, that's only going to add more traffic, more condensed areas. So figuring out ways how we're going to mitigate that traffic is one of the biggest things. And South Kleinfield has been one of the biggest issues. We've had those conversations as well. We have some funding, I believe, with the MPO funds, but I want to see in regards to this program, how can we find some funds that the city can provide so that we can address that street, sooner than later. And so that's kind of just as a whole. I'm extremely happy that we had the master plan done and executed. It has given us a big picture of District 5 and for us to know all the needs that we have and be able to address them. So I'm really happy to hear what the community wants to share, what they also see out there, and what they want to see in the future so that we can go ahead and we can work towards that plan. Thank you, Alex.
All right, thank you, Representative. Really appreciate the comments. And so with that, what we want to do now is before we get into the actual survey, we want to do a brief overview in terms of what the capital planning process is. And so more or less, like, why are we here tonight? Pull up the website. All right, so, for those of you who are following online, and if you want to share this with some other folks, I know we have a pickleball group here tonight, so thanks for coming, but give you a shout out. So if you want to share the website with, some of your neighbors, it's at elevateep.com, and you see here, there's the take the survey. If we can then start the presentation here. So, the reason that we want to have this meeting and kind of just walk through this is because it's really important to have context as to why we're here meeting and why we're here discussing this. So if we can scroll down a little bit. Keep going. We're going to go past this. Yep. Okay, so like we said, so we're here to discuss capital planning, right? And so what we capital planning is that we're trying to identify, what facilities are desired for the community. So it can be things like parks and recreational facilities. It can also be things that you think of that maybe aren't facility related. It can be things like street infrastructure, more of the multimodal activity, bike lanes, and those types of things. So what we want to make sure is that as we're doing these different community meetings, so tonight we're meeting with Eastside residents, last week we were in the Mission Valley, tomorrow night we're in the Northeast, that we want to make sure that we have a clear picture because we recognize that there's differences in different areas of the city. And so we just want to make sure that as we're getting this feedback, that we're able to collect it and present to the representative who's joining us tonight, what are the priorities for her district? So that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to identify projects for the future for the next 5 to 10 years. So the reason that we're starting this process now, which I'm sure might be a question for some of you, like, why are we even talking about this today? And the reason for that is because we started with our strategic plan process. So we've actually gone through the strategic planning process 3 times. At the end of this, you'll see a short video that kind of connects ideas that are talked about during our strategic planning process ultimately end up as projects that the city ends up going and building because we know them to be priorities for our community. And with that, so what we did was we went through the strategic planning process again, December this past year. And what we created was this idea of the 30 by 2030. So it's 30 big ideas that the city council representatives and that our city leadership identified for our community. And what we're trying to do is figure out, do those things align with the wants and needs of the community? So the survey questions really focus on a lot of the ideas that were brought up during the strategic planning process. You can scroll down a little bit. So with outreach is going to happen after we do the public engagement phase. Outreach is probably traditionally what you experience that the city does, and this is a new process that we're trying to go through, which is a much more robust public engagement phase. But with public outreach, that's where we identify the specific projects, how it is going to impact your taxes and those types of things. We're not here to discuss that quite yet. You will have that opportunity. Those will be meetings in the future that will probably take place around May or June, once we have projects identified. But for right now, we're talking big ideas. We want to know what are the priorities first, and then we can talk about specifically projects. So like I said, tonight, what we're doing right now is we're doing public engagement. So you're going to see that the way that the questions are asked is that we want to make sure that we're able to capture some geographic information again, because we want to know what are the community wants and needs of District 5 and the East Side. And then we're going to be getting those same results from other parts of the city as well. We just want to be able to show it to the representatives as they identify those projects, because that's ultimately who's going to decide as the city council representative. But we're just here to collect that feedback. And one of the things that you'll see actually on our website is that you can track the results live. So we want to be completely transparent about this process. So you're able to see the data is refreshed every 5 minutes. So you submit your results. You should see your result reflected on the website within 5 minutes. So what we're going to do then is we're going to take these results. So we do this process, I think, conclude at the end of March. And so we're looking to go to City Council in April, where we're going to present the findings to the City Council members. And we're going to show them, how the ideas that were brought up during these sessions, the priorities that were brought up during these sessions, what the constituents are saying, how they actually reflect, where we need these facilities, right? So again, we're not talking about specific projects, but it's going to lead to ultimate project selection. And we want to use this as the method for how we identify what projects are ultimately selected. Go down a little more. So like I said, so this is going to lead to project selection. So once we identify the projects, and council is going to decide how much money they want this bond to be, what the projects are, that's when we're going to do the public outreach. So that's and we're going to show how council has made the decision to reflect needs of the community art. And that's when we'll know the dollar amount that's going to be associated, say, with a very specific project. But again, that's not where we're at quite yet. But we will be coming back again, like I said, May and June, I think was when we'll start. Ultimately, council has to decide August 2nd. If you can scroll a little bit down. Skip ahead, sorry. Let me talk first about public project funding, and then I'll get into process here in a second. So finally, the last thing I think we want to cover here is project funding. So again, I know that there's going to be a lot more wants and needs than we're going to have funds that are available to us. So I just want to be really clear in terms of setting expectations that bond funding is one way that the city can pay for projects. But there's also obviously your tax dollars. And so this is another way to provide council with some qualitative feedback to say what are the community's priorities, because they can obviously reflect, if people are saying, hey, we want a lot more investment in parks and recreational facilities, they can make that decision and say, we need to allocate more of our general fund, the way that we collect property tax dollars towards those types of services. And so just want to be clear that if you don't see a project on the bond, it doesn't mean that people weren't listening. There's just other opportunities for how those projects can get funded outside of bond funding. Yeah. So this is what I was trying to get to. All right. So the process. So again, right now where we're at, we're doing community engagement. This is going to lead to project selection. Ultimately, we're going to come back to the public to do public outreach. Council needs to decide by August 2nd whether or not they want to move forward with the bond. If they decide that they're going to, there's going to be a formal vote that will need to take place. They'll do a bond introduction ordinance. And if they do it by then there will be an election November 8th of 2022, whether that's when the community members here have the opportunity to vote up or down the bond propositions. Scroll down a little bit more. So to not talk so much in seasons, what we're looking at right now, so February to April, that's when we're doing the public engagement. And then we're going to be looking at from May to June, that's when the project selection, we'll do the public outreach at that time. All that leading up to then the bond introduction ordinance, which again was August 2nd. And so what we want to do to conclude this part of the presentation is to do a short video that shows some completed projects. Again, these projects were identified through the strategic planning process. Again, that's why we're asking for your feedback on some of those things, because again, what we want to make sure that there's clear connection is that projects that are identified as being priorities through strategic planning get built. That's what we want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of, and that's why we want to get that feedback tonight. So that, run the video really quick.
Right, so that video, as Alex said, is sort of illustrative of where we come from our past strategic planning process, past bond process, and past capital improvement processes. So tonight, what we want to do is really go through the survey that we've developed to help us get the sort of higher level feedback that we need to start developing a project list, start coming up with ideas for projects, and start refining those to something that City Council can then evaluate and take action on. So again, tonight, why a survey? Survey helps us understand your priorities. It tells us what kind of projects you want to see and where you want to see them. These results will be combined with some real world data and strategic goals to help elected officials identify specific projects and ultimately identify the funding source. We're going to ask a few questions about yourself, your zip code, nearest large intersection. That helps us align some of the data from the survey with some of our other data sources. And then we're going to ask what kind of projects are important to you and where you'd like to see those projects built. Again, these questions are based on values and priorities and not specific projects. We haven't identified specific projects at this time. So what is the goal? Ultimately, the goal is to collect data to help your elected officials come up with a list of projects based on your input and your data. Your elected officials then will decide how and when to fund these projects or to let voters decide through a bond process. So with that, if there are any questions on the process, we can jump straight into the survey at this time. Go ahead. Okay, so our first question is really just to help you better take the survey. If you are a Spanish speaker, the survey is available in English and Spanish, and it is the exact same survey in either language. Again, this survey seeks to gather input on the city's capital improvement plan. We're going to ask you questions related to projects and project focus areas, and help your elected officials decide where and how to make investments in your community. If you want to follow along with the survey, you can go to that elevateep.com link. We have paper copies of the survey here in the room. Marcella will put the link to the survey in the chat for folks joining us online. If you have questions here in the room as we're going through this, feel free to raise your hand and we'll address it. If you're on virtual, go ahead and put your question in the chat and someone from our team will address it in the virtual chat. So the first question is to give us your email address. If you'd like, this isn't a required question, but it'll help us get an idea of how many folks have responded and be able to keep in touch with you throughout the rest of the process. As Alex said, this is sort of step one. As we develop a project list and refine that list, there will be further outreach efforts. So we want to make sure that we're staying engaged with you and keeping you updated along the process. This is a question that helps us relocate where the results are coming from, and ultimately, as we evaluate those results, help us give really specific feedback to City Council on what the priorities were in their district. And then entering your zip code below, another location data question. Go ahead. And this question helps us align the data that we're going to get from these survey results with other data that our group has put together on things like historical investments, things like service gaps. So it's important from this survey is a piece of a much larger puzzle, right? We're going to put all that data together as we evaluate where the priorities are and what those priorities are. This fourth question on just your locational data is, do you rent or own your home? Again, this just gives us an idea of who's answering the survey. Hopefully helps us identify if there are areas where we need to put more emphasis on our engagement efforts. An accurate cross-section of the city's population. So this is our first question that's really value-based. As Alex said, we really are looking at sort of higher level values and project areas. So for this question, we'd like you to rank the following project areas from highest to lowest. The highest, number one, should reflect the types of projects which you feel are most important to your daily life as a resident of El Paso. So whether you're on a computer or mobile, you should be able to drag and drop these into the correct order. If you're filling out the paper survey, just go ahead and write the number to the left of the different options.
And if you're having trouble seeing all the questions on the screen, feel free to rotate your phone. We heard that the last time, and so that's a good way to make sure you're seeing everything if you're doing it on a mobile device.
So the first question, hopefully gives us an idea of what the most prioritized project area is. The questions that are following that one are going to help us get a better idea of what your priorities are within that valued area. So as a city, streets and transportation infrastructure, which types of investments do you feel are most important? Again, this is a ranking question, so drag and drop, the highest being the most important to you and the lowest being the least important to you. This next question is more about the location where you think these streets investments should be occurring. So as the city makes investments in streets and transportation infrastructure, what locations do you feel are most important? Rather than a drag and drop rank, and this one we're asking you to identify each of the options as either less important, equally, or more important. We're now going to shift the focus to parks, recreation, and quality of life facilities. So where should the city focus its investment in new or refurbished parks and recreation facilities? This is another ranking question where if you have questions on any of the options, feel free to raise your hand or shout out to us or ask in the chat, and we can give you a little more detail on what our intent was with those options. And then finally, this is really sort of a visual preference question. So as the city makes investments in new parks and rec facilities, which types of facilities do you feel are most appropriate? So we've got large regional parks and facilities like the Beast, smaller neighborhood parks within walking distance of neighborhoods, investments in new equipment and infrastructure for existing parks, facilities specific to certain sports or activities like football, play courts, or for the group here tonight, pickleball courts, or other quality of life facilities like museums and libraries. And on this question, you can choose the two that are most important to you. So now, still on Parks and Rec, we're going to ask you to choose the type of quality of life facilities that you are most likely to use in your daily life. So we've got outdoor play fields, indoor recreational facilities, competition-grade aquatics facilities, linear parks and improved trails, open space, natural unimproved trails, and museums, libraries, and cultural facilities.
What do y'all mean by linear parks?
There are a few linear parks throughout the city. There's the Edgemere Linear Park. So these are parks that are linear in nature. They're not very wide, but they're very long. So it's a different type of park that sort of exists within, in terms of the Edgemere Park, it's really a median park. So it's just a different type of park facility. It's more suited to, running, jogging, experiencing the park in that way rather than a park like what we're next to, which is more suited to like a playground and play fields.
So somebody likes just the community parks, would they put linear? Or?
So the linear parks are really specific to that sort of, long trail running, jogging type aspect. So we're going to shift the focus now to economic development. There are a number of ways that we can use capital investments to support economic development in our region. And so how should the city focus its economic development programs and investments? This is another ranking question, so you can drag and drop, or you can click the little arrow and choose the number that you'd like to assign to that option. So further, as the city develops these economic development programs, what geographic areas do you feel are most important to focus on? Again, this is a choose two visual preference. So we've got downtown. B is a picture of a specific area, but the question is really open-ended. It's really just the district and area where you live. So if you answer District 5 or District 6 to that first question, and you click B, reflect that you want investments in your district. Along high priority transportation corridors. So these are areas where the city's already made significant investments in transit and transportation. Think of major streets like the Alameda Brio route, Montana Brio, Dyer Brio, corridors of that nature. Option D is on vacant lots or abandoned existing buildings. This is something in the planning world we refer to as infill development. So it's really adding value to existing neighborhoods by getting rid of some of those vacant lots and abandoned buildings and turning them into something more productive. And finally, option E, location doesn't matter. So we'll now shift the focus again to climate change and energy consumption. So what type of investments do you feel are most appropriate for the city in addressing energy and climate change? Rank the following from most to least appropriate. So we've got investments in solar, like rooftop solar installations for city-owned facilities. Again, as this is the capital improvement process, these are improvements specific to city-owned facilities. This wouldn't be, a city program that would support you putting solar panels on your home. Transit and mobility investments that help reduce vehicle emissions and traffic congestion. Investments in electric vehicles and charging stations, again, city vehicles, and investments to reduce energy costs and energy use in city facilities. And our final sort of substantive question for the evening is to choose the type of tourism facilities that you would love to see in El Paso that are currently not available. So we have ecotourism that supports campgrounds near the mountains and creates experience destinations. Ecotourism that supports robust local mountain biking events with supporting facilities. Ecotourism that celebrates our riverfront amenities and supports local farming business. And then finally, heritage tourism that celebrates our history as a city, specifically our downtown core and traditional neighborhoods. Yes, ma'am.
How can tourism support farming? I wasn't clear on that.
So
The question for everyone online was, how can tourism support farming?
One of the lower left, it says riverfront and farming.
Yes, so it's option C. So ecotourism is a specific type of tourism. So it's not tourism that would support farming, but it's tourism that celebrates farming. So you can think of supporting things like farmers markets, things like farm to market, things that will help people experience our agricultural lands in a way that they haven't done so before. And then finally, question 16, this is our open-ended question. We're well aware that this survey was developed by humans and there's always room for human error. So if you think we've missed something, if you think we should add something on the next go around, please share it with us here. This is completely open-ended. You can type anything you'd like. Save the insults, please. Hopefully we don't have any of those. But anything you'd like to share with us about the capital planning process and this survey can be gathered here. And we do look at these, we do read them. It's not just a throwaway question. We are aggregating all of this data and not only aggregating it, but also posting it online publicly.
So with that actually concludes the survey component. So what we wanted to do then with our remaining time is, so we have the room until 6:30, so that leaves us a little bit more than 25 minutes, is that we wanted to be able to have the opportunity to discuss some of the things that maybe were issues that were really important to you. Sorry, I don't need to turn it back. That maybe weren't included as part of the questionnaire. I just want to really reinforce that, we're here to talk about the capital planning process. So if there's projects, for example, that you want to get updates on, we do have comment cards. You can leave those with us and we'll make sure that somebody replies to you. But we want to really make sure that the discussion is focused on what do you think are priorities for your neighborhood, for the community, and maybe some things that you didn't see on the survey that you want to make sure that the representative who's here virtually can hear firsthand. Before we do that, I just want to point out really quick, here's the survey results. As I said, these things are getting updated live. So you can see the number of responses. If you check it later tonight, it's going to be more than 601. You can also see how other people are voting across the community. So with that, we're going to allow for everyone to, if you have comments or anything that you want to express, now's the time to do it. We would ask if you are going to speak, please try to come a little bit close to this so that way people online can hear you. If we do have questions online, we're going to cycle back and forth from in person to online, so that way we give everybody an opportunity to speak. So, floor is open.
Is this stuff on the survey page? These?
Yes, sir, it is. So the question was whether or not the survey results are on the website. They are. So if you go to take the survey, And then you can actually see the live survey results here at the top, and that's where we're getting that information. Oh, well, 3 more results since the last time.
And as you finish the survey, after you hit submit, there should be a button there that asks you if you'd like to view the results when you're done with the survey. So that'll take you straight to that page.
Good. Yes, sir. If you can just make sure to come up a little bit.
Yeah, how long is it gonna take the survey? And when do we expect the results?
Yes, sir. So the question was, how long, are we leaving open the survey and when do we expect the results? So we're going to be leaving this open. So we have a number of other community meetings like this one that will take place between now and the end of this month. We anticipate that what we will be doing is we'll tabulate the results of this survey and we'll be presenting them to City Council sometime in April. So either the first or second meeting in April, because Council meets every 2 weeks.
Okay, and then after that, you're gonna present it to the public when?
So
the results are being presented to the public right now.
The results.
Yeah, these are live results.
I mean, we haven't taken the survey yet.
right.
Okay.
So
I would say that they're presenting right now. No, I'm talking about the new survey that's gonna be for the new bonds.
So this is the survey for the new bonds. And
Yeah,
so as the results come in, they're being tabulated, they're being reflected on this website.
So it's updated on a daily basis?
It's updated every 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So, for those of you who are filling out the version of the paper, we take them and then we tabulate them. So it takes us, a day to get those out. But if you're doing it online, it's every 5 minutes being updated.
Okay, but then you say that you're gonna present it to the city council in April?
Yes, so the difference of what we're going to be presenting to City Council as opposed to, just what you see online is that we're going to do a little bit more analysis. So that way we can present, for example, to the District 5 representative, what were the priorities specific to her district? So it's just going to be a little bit more detailed. What we plan to do when we do that presentation is that it will be available on our website. We'll post it. And so if you do sign up for, give us your email address, we can send it to you as we make those presentations that are relevant to this process.
Because I was more concerned about when you present it to city council and then when you're gonna present it to the public.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, and we'll definitely, we'll make it available. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Yes, Lois, would you mind coming up so that way we can just hear you?
I thought this was a city charter amendment meeting.
No, ma'am. So this meeting is here to discuss.
That's what I read it as when I read
okay.
the thing. And I had an amendment and want me to pass it on to you?
I believe our PIO is here. If you want to pass it on to her,
Okay.
she will get forward this on, but thank you. Yeah, so we're here specifically, just so everybody knows, we're here to talk about the planning process, again, because City Council did direct us that they wanted us to begin the process of developing a bond. And so we want to know what those projects are.
What was the email? What was the survey?
elevateep.com.
Elevateep.com.
ELEV. And it's also.
Take the QR, you can find it on the web.
My name is Jamie Fisher, and I'm president of Pickleball El Paso. We have a large turnout today. Clearly, we have an interest in the Parks and Rec portion of the survey. And as Alex mentioned, we all are just doing high level now, specific projects of player. But a lot of people aren't familiar with pickleball. It is incredibly popular nationwide. We have 1.4 million regular players. El Paso is the only Southwest city that doesn't have a single court. We have multi-use, indoor, shared stuff, but there's not one single dedicated court. Las Cruces dedicated 8 outdoor last October, and they just broke ground on their second facility. Tucson literally has over 100. Ruidoso even has 4. So what is the sport that's so popular? You play it with a paddle, which is lighter, and the ball is lighter, and the court is smaller. So it's less dangerous than tennis. And we do have a lot of tennis players that come over. The good news is the court is 1/3 the size of the tennis court. So it's less expensive to build. So we would like to see a facility like this Salcedo, you'd like to know what's going on in your area. You all have, working players are the ones that have almost no place to play. We drive to Las Cruces to play because there are very few facilities here. And Del Palacios, they did tape 2 courts outdoors. So if the gym is open, you can go borrow a net and play. The other facility you have, y'all opened Carrion, which is on Omaland. It has 1 court on Tuesday night is available for a few hours. And sometimes we have 12 people showing up to play there. That's during working hours. During the day, it's easier. So those of us who are retired, not that big a deal, but the working players are really having a hard time with it. And so we are hoping that we can get some kind of facility that would accommodate our sport. Unlike tennis, where 4 people go and 4 people play for an hour and a half, with pickleball, the courts split and share. You play for 20 minutes and then you switch courts and you play with a new team. And then you switch courts again. So the current multi-use, when there are 2, doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You end up with brand new beginners playing against men who hit the ball really hard. And it's not the way the sport is designed. It needs to have 8 courts where we can separate by ability and we can switch and trade. The courts in Las Cruces are packed on Saturdays. They will have over 50 people there playing, and there are only 32 spots available. So during the week as well, we go up on Wednesdays, Thursdays, the courts are always full. And like I said, they just broke ground on their 2nd facility. We would like to see El Paso get one.
We're taking our money to Las Cruces.
Yeah, we do. Albuquerque has a facility, Manzano Mesa, and it has something like 30 courts. And when they hold an out-of-town tournament, they will get 100, and 50 of those will be from out of town. That was development, and those people are paying, obviously, hotel. They held a tournament in September, October, and November, and one got 300 entries. One of them was 150 entries, and like I said, a third of those are from out of town. So that was their focus when they built Manzano Mesa. Tucson, like I said, if you Google it, you'll get 2 pages of results. So very popular sport for a good reason, easy to learn, fast, kids can play it. Tennis players are coming over, retirees. So we're hoping that El Paso will consider putting in a dedicated facility rather than the multi-use.
No, thank you. That's great feedback. I really appreciate
Great,
that.
thank you.
So that's exactly the, the type of comments that we're looking for. That is really helpful. And again, the representative can hear. So that way she knows that that's a priority. So with that in mind, just want to see if there's anybody else who had any comments. The same thing as well online. If there's anyone who has a question, please feel free to ask. You can see that we have a timer that's reflecting how much time we have left in the room. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one last question, or maybe it's a suggestion. When they got pretty sure, right? When they start a project and the location they start the project, is there any way they can put a time frame when they're going to start, when they're going to finish, how they're doing, or where we can see that?
Yes, sir. So the question, in case it wasn't audible or mine, was just about being able to track the process and progress of projects. And so the city actually does do that. We actually update our projects on a monthly basis. It is on our city website, which is elpasotexas.gov, and the name of our department is the Capital Improvement Department. So if you go to that, then I can show you how to do actual means.
I tried.
Okay.
I'll be honest.
And so
I
there's a
No.
monthly report that we do produce, and it does show the progress that's made, the estimated completion date, the percent complete. But we can talk about it afterwards. We can.
Definitely, yes.
And if there's a question online, please feel free to put it in the chat. We can read it out in case you don't want to ask the question yourself, and then we can answer it here as well. Anybody have any other questions, comments, anything that you want to see that we didn't talk about? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Marcia Laboda. And right now, the main library downtown is being renovated and almost gutted for the addition of the Mexican American Cultural Center. Recently in the news, the Mexican American Cultural Institute indicated that they were going to have their own institute in Lincoln Center. Lincoln and their institute and the MAC are going to have the same things. Now my question is, why didn't the city negotiate between the two parties for one facility instead of two separate facilities that has everything the same?
Sure. So again, I don't want to disregard the question. Okay. So we are here to talk about capital plan process. And it's looking in the future. Yes, I know, but that's talking about a previously approved bond. And so we can discuss that after. We can also, have the project manager get in touch with you and give you additional information. I just want to make sure that we do keep the focus on looking towards the future and knowing what the priorities are. So I don't want to ignore your question, but I just want to make sure that we stay on topic.
All right, then there's another question.
Yes, ma'am.
We're sitting on $2.5 billion debt through the certificates of obligation. How much more debt is this going to add?
So the question is asking about how much additional debt will these projects add? So, that's really important. And obviously we want to make sure that the city's in good financial position, but also to not be overburdening taxpayers. So to answer that question, right now, we do not have projects identified. What we are going to be doing as we begin to get the feedback and we do begin to identify projects, our CFO, Robert Cortinas, does make sure that any additional debt that we do take on is something that the city can handle and that it can manage. Look, at the end of the day, it is up to the voters to vote up or down. So if you do not want to see, additional debt being issued by the city, then I would encourage you to make sure that you show up and you vote. That's the most important thing. We're not here advocating for or against. We're just trying to identify what the priorities are. And at the end of the day, however the voters vote is going to determine whether or not these projects happen or not. Any other comments, questions? Anybody else want to talk about pickleball? No questions on that? Okay. Yes, sir.
I have a specific request or suggestion or request. Can I make it or?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think something that the city lacks is walkways. How can I explain? Like, for instance, the one that we see on Edgemere, right between Geronimo and Airway. It's only like a few hundred feet, but it's like a really nice walkway. It's lit at night and is really inviting for for walking or running. And I think that's something that the city could use more of throughout the city.
Sure.
That's something that I would like to see, expand. I mean, it would be a great improvement for the quality of life. A lot of more people would walk, would run on them. A lot of people can make use of it, and especially if it were something that would stretch for a few miles,
Yep.
along a long street or throughout different streets, changing streets, as long as it's like a continuous path, make it something safe, something with lighting. The ones on Airway, and I also seen them on Horizon. They have lighting, about yay high, and it's probably LED solar, so it wouldn't add too much to the expense.
No, that's a great comment. So just, so that way we can make sure that we get it reflected in the record correctly. We are recording things. So if you had to pick your ideal location, like what would be a good spot that you think that amenity like this would work really well? Not to put you on the spot. You can just talk about it generally if you don't have a specific street in mind.
Well, I know that the far east side, right along the Pebble Hills area, already has some of those walkways. I'm not sure if they have lighting or not, but something a little bit more
not so far east, right along maybe Edgemere, continue on Edgemere or Pebble Hills. Those kinds of streets, I mean, that's
So
my idea.
just to make sure, so that way we can communicate, exactly what you're thinking. So you're thinking about, say, high traffic streets that have a lot of cars on them right now, making sure that those high traffic streets then also have amenities for pedestrians as well that are lit. So that way pedestrians can use them and feel safe with them as well. Is that what you're thinking?
I think ideally it'd be better to have them on less traffic streets. However, those less traffic streets do not extend as far, they do not provide the opportunity, unless there are some that I'm not aware of.
Sure.
But
So maybe like lower speed streets, that way we feel safe for pedestrians. Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And my other suggestion was for the bike lanes.
Okay.
I'm a cyclist myself, and I think they can be improved a little bit. Sometimes the roads, I don't know if this is part of this or not,
No,
but
it
it's an improvement of the roads. Sometimes cyclists are forced to leave the bike lane because the street the bike lane is actually not the best quality. So people wonder why we leave the bike lane, and that is the reason. Sometimes it's not well maintained, or it's not clean, and there's just too much debris that will get flat tires for sure. So that is my second suggestion.
So then, again, so that way, because this is your opportunity to dream big. So if you had an opportunity to say, okay, the city is going to do bicycle facilities, what type of bicycle facilities would you like to see the most, right? Because there's different quality or different things that are like dedicated bike lanes that are separated from the street. There's ones that are shared on the street. So what do you think? Like, what would you like to see more of specifically on the type of facility?
The already established bike lanes, actually, there are actually some that extend for many miles on Edgemere and Pebble Hills. So we'd like to just see a little bit more visibility. Monwood also has them. I think Monwood is a little bit more marked. So something along the lines of what it's been done with Monwood, to see that on Pebble Hills and Edgemere, as well as some of the streets that run north-south, such as Yarborough and to keep the cyclists safe and to keep the driver safe as well.
No, definitely. So yeah, no, we really appreciate the comment. So just so everybody knows, we do have a city-approved bike plan. The challenge is that even though we have the bike plan, is having the funding for it. So, to your question, this is the time to be discussing those things, because, if we set aside money for streets, part of streets can include bicycle infrastructure, it can be things like pedestrian lighting, trails and those types of things. So when you think about streets, it can be inclusive of different elements as well. So thank you very much for the comment.
Another question real quick, on Montana, right now that it's being developed, do you know if there's any new bike lanes planned for us?
So Montana is actually a TxDOT street. I don't know, but our director of capital improvement is in the back. She might be able to answer your question if you want to ask her separately.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, so you see that we're about 7.5 minutes from the conclusion of our meeting. So anybody else have comments?
No.
Go for it. If nobody else wants.
Okay. Representative Salcido, if you'd like to come play with us sometime, please come out. We're a very open group. When they dedicated the courts in Las Cruces, city council got out there in their suits and their street shoes, and they were able to paddle the ball around. We had a great time. So Alex got our contact information. We got Facebook, we got our website. Love to have you. Love to have you come out and join us sometime. Friendly people. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll gather that information and get with you. I'll go on the weekend. I'm actually not familiar with pickleball. It sounds like this is a great sport. Like you mentioned, it's less intensive as tennis. I think tennis is a great sport. It's keeping you all active, and that's what's important. And so I'm excited to go try it out. So and see what that's all about. And just to kind of add a little bit there, some context, we do have the phase 2 of the Beast. And as you kind of share your concerns, I'll look into how that can possibly be fitted in there. Not too sure. I know we're looking for funding. That's always a challenge. But first, it's just addressing or identifying what the needs or what the wants are, And so I already have it loud and clear here. So pickleball is one. So it's on my notes and it's not going to be disregarded. So thank you so much for your input. And I will definitely go out with you.
Okay, I think that wraps everything up. Thank you all very much for joining us.
And Representative, not to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you wanted to close the meeting or have any other words that you wanted to share before we conclude the meeting.
I just wanted to say thank you so much to the staff, and I know you've done a lot of work, and more than anything, the community to show up and really share what they want to see and envision. It's loud and clear. I took a lot of notes. A little bit more as this meeting was going, I received some emails. You know, they want to address Española Park improvements, traffic lights at Pebble Hills resurfacing. We want to focus on the Montwood connection. I think quality of life was one that I have actually been hearing a lot about, where District 5 has to drive everywhere to, you know, be able to participate in activities. And so I would love to bring more activities into District 5 and just more quality of life. That way we're not having to drive on the weekends as well out of our district. I keep hearing more jobs in District 5, solar initiatives, reduce carbon footprint in regards to bikes. And I think that was a really good point that he mentioned. He wants, you know, more light in some of these streets that are not very trafficked, and just addressing also that the streets are good for the bikers. It's why we want to make sure everybody's safe. And I did hear a lot about walking trails and I know pickleball is also a sport. So just a way for the district to stay healthy. We all know that during this pandemic, staying healthy and you know, taking your vitamins is just like what you should be doing, just so that we can, you know, have a very strong immune system. So if we could be active, stay active, and we can incorporate in this community, it's going to help us. It's going to help us even in the future and as we go through this pandemic. So thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our meeting. Again, if you did the paper survey, please make sure to drop that off. If you have a comment, please also drop it off. Again, thank you so much for participating and looking forward to seeing the results. Thank you.
Thank you.